record. Right. So let me just start with a recap of what we did last time. I think it's very important for us to transition to what we're going to talk about today. So last lesson, we started the history subject. We talked about the history of succession. We went through the introductory questions, and I think they're very important in order for you to understand the difference between succeeding someone and replacing them. Let me just share my screen. So these are the introductory questions that we did last time. We had a very interesting discussion on actual examples. For example, we talked about the Lion King, about Mufasa, Simba, and Scar, and we also talked about a situation with a bad and a good teacher, Miss Ginny, and whatnot. Then I moved on to talk about family businesses. I told you that the Japanese have an interesting tradition where they are allowed to adopt a grown person, an adult, into their family just so they can pass over their family business in case one of their children doesn't want to do it. And there are more than 50,000 companies in Japan which are older than 100 years, and they have the oldest hotel in the world, which has been run by the same family for 26 generations, and it was founded 1,300 years ago. Then I talked about Michelle Obama. I explained that there were a lot of people who wanted her to run for president. Of course, this was before Trump was voted. Before Trump ran the race. But there were a lot of people who thought that maybe Michelle Obama would make a great president because her husband did so well. Obama won 2 terms, and people were very happy with him, with his contribution, because I think that his major contribution was in terms of the healthcare. They call it Obamacare, which was essentially public healthcare. So there were a lot of people who thought that just because she was his wife, that she'd be president. Of course, she said that there was zero chance of that happening because she thought that everyone in the society can contribute in a different way. I also told you another example of how family ties have a role in politics with Trump, because his two children, Ivanka, I don't know what the pronunciation is. Probably they call her Ivanka in USA. So his daughter was part of his administration team. She was in charge of the taxes, but apparently she did something. I don't know. They were trying to bypass the law and hide some money. So now she's facing legal charges. And his son, Donald Trump Jr., which is a weird thing in itself, naming your child with the same name, just adding Jr. It's weird. Right. So both of them are now facing charges because I think that that's a negative way of how family ties can get in the way. Of course, they made a lot of money for themselves. They got a lot of publicity from doing that. But I don't know if that was useful for the whole American society in a nutshell. Today, I'll talk about something connected. It still has to do with family ties, but in a different context. I have selected some bits from the curriculum that I think will be very important for you. Hopefully, you'll have time to look into the other materials as well. I think that this will be the last lesson for this bit, the return of the kings or succession in politics. Next time, I might start with another subject just to make things interesting, or maybe just continue talking about the corporate succession. The first article, the first two articles are actually situations that happened in ancient Egypt. They're quite similar, but there are some differences. And then I'll talk about the Republic of Rome, not the empire, the Republic. I think that that's also very important to cover, and I'll try to give you some examples. Now, we need to try to wrap this lesson in about an hour. So let me do the explanation first, and then I'll ask you questions. because if you butt in the middle of the explanation, I think it won't be very time efficient. As I said, I have to attend a meeting at 3 o'clock, so I won't be able to continue the lesson like we did last time. So I'll start with this one. Amenemhet the first. Um, there's a lot of information you can find in this article. I'll just single out the most important information that you need to know. You don't need to know everything, obviously, because these are given just as examples, as guidelines to what you would potentially use for a debate or when writing an essay. So this guy, Amenemhet the First, lived and reigned from 1938 to 1908 BC. So he reigned for 30 years. That happened 4,000 years ago, right? I hope my math's right. And he founded the 12th dynasty. Now, what's interesting about this guy is that he was a really good king. He was the king of ancient Egypt, as I said, and he was an experienced administrator, which means that he knew his things around ruling the citizens. He had some very interesting decisions that he made. What I would like to focus on is that when he started building, he adopted a style from a previous age. So he didn't build the way that people built at that time. So he decided to go back. Now, the idea behind it was to show that by building with in that particular style, that he kept the tradition alive, and he wanted to say we are the inheritors of this tradition. Our ancestors built this way. We belong to our ancestors. This is what we should focus to. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to discuss about how architecture plays a role in politics. This is something that's incredibly interesting and useful. If you have the time, please have a look at that. You can look it up on the internet. So, architecture and politics. I wouldn't want to talk about our politics in our country because it might make things weird. So I'll just focus on politics from these periods. Now, what's interesting about this, the highlight of this article is that in the 20th year of his reign, this guy Amenemhet made his son Sesostris I co-regent. Co-regent refers to the ability to co-rule. So in a sense, there were two kings of ancient Egypt, Amenemhet I and Sesostris I, his son. And as you can guess, everything flourished. The whole country was underwent huge progress. They started building, and while Amenemhet, because who was an older guy, was taking care of the more subtle things, let's say in Egypt, Sesostris, who was a young guy, was in charge of the military advances. So what they did was they attacked the neighboring countries and they pillaged them, they raided them. So they brought a lot of gold. The thing is that while Sesostris was one of his quests, he heard the news that his father had died. They did the funeral, and Sesostris assumed the kingship. So he became the sole king of ancient Egypt. There were no problems whatsoever while both of them were ruling, and there were no problems when the old king Amenemhet died. Now, the idea here is that because of their close family bond, the combination is a father and a son, they were able to pull this off. So they were working together, and they assigned different roles to their positions so they could bring prosperity to ancient Egypt. This was a good example. Remember this as a good example of co-regency, ruling together, because what I'm going to tell you now is going to be quite different. Is this okay? Can I just get a confirmation that this one is clear?
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
It's very easy. It's very
Yes,
simple.
teacher.
Now, this is where
Yes.
things get complicated. So I need you to pay attention. Pharaoh Hatshepsut. It feels weird to pronounce it that way because in Macedonian we call it differently, but never mind. So Pharaoh Hatshepsut is one of the most well-known pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt. Her reign was described as a peaceful and prosperous reign. She was one of the best pharaohs that Egypt has had. She had a great contribution in building, also in protecting Egypt's borders, and also there were a lot of trading missions. Now, it's weird that if she had such a good contribution to the country, why would anyone hate her? Because the weirdest thing happened after she died, not while she was alive. Uh, so the thing is that 20 years from her death, people started destroying anything associated with Hatshepsut. So in some of the buildings, she had inscribed her visage, so her face. She found a way to solidify her reign by smacking it into people's faces, like I'm the pharaoh. This is what I built. So she was putting a mark on everything that she built. It's like I don't know. It's like when dogs pee on a tree just to mark their territory. This one is something similar. So after her death, people started destroying those temples and started destroying those buildings. Now I have to take you to the beginning, and I have to do this by drawing it because otherwise it's really complicated to understand. I hope that it will be okay this way. So the Hatshepsut's father, let's start from over here. Hatshepsut's father was called Tuthmosis. It sounds like a disease. Would you agree? Tuthmosis the first, and he was married to Queen Ahmose. Right? So far, so good. No problems over there. So they were happy. Tuthmosis was a great king. No one had anything against him. He was doing a good job. They had a couple of children. I don't know the exact number. It doesn't even matter. So they gave birth to Hatshepsut. How do you spell it though? They gave birth to Hatshepsut. Now, at that time, it was in Egypt, it was okay for a woman to be pharaoh. I don't know if you were aware of that. So there weren't any legal obstacles of a woman becoming a pharaoh. She could have. However, it was frowned upon. Although it was legal, people didn't really like it. They thought that the country would be safer in the hands of a male heir. So, because this guy Tuthmosis didn't have a male heir with Queen Ahmose, what do you think he did? Anyone? Come on.
I suppose he remarried with another.
What's more interesting is that he didn't have to remarry because this guy had this. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's harem, or maybe the English pronunciation would be harem. I'm not sure. I'll just call it harem. Harem was a place special for the pharaoh where there were a lot of women, and right. So all of them were in a way his wives. There was one that had the highest status, that was Queen Ahmose, but there weren't any obstacles for Tuthmosis to have other women as well. So in the harem, he had a woman who was of a very high status. Her name was what was her name? I don't remember if we have her name, but let's just say that he had another girl on the side, another woman in the harem, and they gave birth to a male heir. What do you think they called him? What was his name?
Tuthmosis too.
Tuthmosis too, of course, because that's what you do, right? So now this is where things get interesting. Pay attention and don't be grossed out. So Tuthmosis the first and Queen Ahmose have Hatshepsut, no male heir. Tuthmosis, this guy, has another woman in the harem, and they give birth to Tuthmosis the second, who is eligible of becoming the next pharaoh. It's okay because this other woman, mystery woman, was of high status. So it was all right. So what's the normal logical step in this case?
That Tuthmosis the second becomes pharaoh, right?
Yes, but first he marries Hatshepsut.
What?
Yes, this is so
Marries
interesting.
his
It's,
half
it's,
sister.
Wait.
it's like a
What?
it's like a
Does she
soap.
know
What?
that that's his
No.
half? Does he know that that's his half sister?
Yeah, of course.
Or
I mean, it was quite normal, you know.
Son,
And
why?
it wasn't only in ancient Egypt. This happened all over Europe. I mean, in the curriculum for the Scholars Cup, you'll find a lot of other examples where people married their stepsisters or their cousins just to secure their reign or their territory.
That
It
is
was a
not
very
normal.
common thing. It's fascinating. Now, to make this soap opera even more interesting, we'll add another name here. So Hatshepsut, who is Tuthmosis the second. What's the Tuthmosis the second stepsister? They have a child, and again, it's a girl, and her name is Princess Neferure. That's a very interesting name. You should consider it. So Princess Neferure. So again, there is no there's no male heir from this line of the family. So what do they do? What do you think the logical thing to do is for Tuthmosis?
go to
Do
the
the same as his
Well, how the
father.
story goes, he has another girl on the side.
Yes, he was a player as well. So this guy also had another woman in the harem. It's fascinating. And she was able to produce. They were able to produce a male heir. So she gave birth to, what was his name? Can you guess? Follow the pattern.
Tuthmosis the first.
Tuthmosis the third.
He
So his
marries
name was
Princess
Tuthmosis.
Nefer, whatever her name is. I am gonna.
No, she didn't marry. No.
Reach
This
out.
is where the soap opera ends, in a way. So Tuthmosis the second had another woman in the harem. They gave birth to Tuthmosis the third. Now, he was going to be the next heir to the throne. Suddenly, this guy, Tuthmosis the second, dies. We don't know how he died. It doesn't even matter. He died. This guy, Tuthmosis the third, is still a baby. So Hatshepsut, who is his she's his stepmother slash aunt, whatever. So Hatshepsut is Tuthmosis III's stepmother and also aunt. So because he's still a baby and he can't rule a country as big as Egypt was, she becomes the regent. What that means is that she was ruling the country in his stead, on his behalf. Now, I think I said now like 100 times. I think I'm really tired today. Never mind. So this is the part about the co-regency. She started ruling the country, and it was there was an official statement. She never negated that Tuthmosis III was the next heir. What she was saying is that I'll make my best to secure the throne for him, so when he grows up, like when he's 15 or 16, he'll become the new king. That never happened. That was the weird thing, because Hatshepsut knew that she was doing a very good job at leading the country. So she was like, why should I risk it and just leave the throne to Tuthmosis when I can contribute so much to the society? So what she did is she actually had a coronation, and she became the rightful king, not queen, king. She became the king. And in a lot of the depictions of Hatshepsut, she's wearing clothes that would be regarded, that would be credited to men. She even had the fake beard and everything. So in a way, she was acting like a man, although she was a woman. While she was doing that, she wanted to make her right to the throne even stronger. So what she started, this is where it gets political. So what she started doing is putting her face on all the buildings that she built, as I told you at the beginning, because when the normal citizens saw the grandeur, how big those buildings were, the temples, and they saw her face on it, uh, they couldn't help but think that she had the right to be on the throne. And I suppose that by now you already know what hieroglyphs are. You know those drawings on the walls inside pyramids where people are like this, and there is a big eye. All of them mean something. It's not just gibberish. There's a meaning behind every symbol. So what she started doing is putting her name in all of those hieroglyphs. She was everywhere. So anytime people read something, her name would pop up. And just in a way to I don't want to make her sound bad, but I suppose she was a good leader, and she intended to rule Egypt forever. While she was doing this, there were people who remembered what she had said in the past. There were people who knew that Moses III was the rightful heir to the throne, and there was a group of people who were saying like, why doesn't she step down so that Moses resumes the throne? Because she was about 20 years old and she still hadn't stepped down. Now, that doesn't mean that he was put in a prison or tortured or anything. She was very nice to him. She just didn't let him rule. Now, this guy had a very comfortable life as well. He became second in command of the national army, and he was about to become the first. And he was a very popular figure. People liked him very much. He was a brave soldier. He would make a very good king. And he also had a harem. So I suppose it runs in the family. He loved women as well. So he had a very comfortable life. What's interesting is that when Hatshepsut died, I don't remember how she died. It doesn't even matter. 20 years, of course, Tuthmosis III assumed the throne, but 20 years from then, people started breaking everything that she had built, demolishing, as if they were trying to erase her from the history. And it was a very long time. It took a very long time for scientists and archaeologists to realize what had happened. We don't know for sure if Tuthmosis III's followers did that. I suppose it makes sense. So if we compare this example with the first one, the first example, it was a combination between a father and a son, which is a very strong bond. And the father would never do harm to his son, uh, even when they were ruling together. In this case, I think that the family ties are a bit mixed up. We don't even know if Hatshepsut was more of a stepmom or an aunt or whatever. So I think that the the more distant the family ties go, I think the more problems arise. Do you understand? So far we've had family ties in, for examples, with the Trumps, with the Obamas, no problems. I mean, we've discussed those issues with
Teacher, this
Amenemhet.
isn't succession.
Sorry,
This isn't succession.
but when
She didn't succeed the previous ruler.
she did, well, she did in a way.
No, the
Because
fact that she did good doesn't mean that she succeeded him.
yes, you have a point there. Although I mean, she was supposed to succeed or become the new king after her husband died. So I suppose it's interesting. I mean, I don't have a straightforward answer for all of these things. I just want to inform you of what happened and what people think about it, so you can draw your own conclusions. So far, so good. Do you understand this?
Yes.
Because I'd like
Yes.
to move to something.
Yeah,
Yes.
teacher.
I'd like to move to something different now, and I'd like to give an example. Who shall I use? I'll use Marco, Adea, and David as examples because they're first on my screen. Now, pay attention to this. Um, let's say that you guys are friends, right? You're classmates, and the rules are the same for everyone in the classroom. No one can stand out. No one can have privileges in terms of the others. Now, you are not satisfied with that, and I think that it's a normal thing for everyone to be ambitious. Let's say that you three are more ambitious than your classmates, and you come up with an informal alliance, with a pact, and Marco says, "Listen, guys, I have an idea. I've noticed that our classmates never have a pen, for the exams. So I think I'll buy some pens and I'll resell them for a higher price over here. But how are we going to do that? Because we're not allowed. It's against the law." So Marco is the businessman. He has an idea, right? He's going to buy the pens. Adea is good at talking to teachers, so she's going to sweet talk them. She'll if someone finds out, she'll be like, "Oh, come on, teachers, we're such nice kids. Why would you say that? Please, come on, mind your own business." So she's the politician in this case. David is a buff guy, and he can beat anyone up. So if the classmates notice what's going on and someone decides to rebel, David will take them behind school and beat them up, so they'll never think about doing it again. So what we have here is the businessman, we have the politician, and we have the bully. Let's say, I wouldn't say a bully, but whatever. It's actually a bully. So these three people can bring something to the table that the others cannot. So they know that they can help each other to bypass the laws, and by doing that, they split the share. So once Marcos sells the pens for 100 dinars, let's say, 30% goes to Marco, 30 goes to Adele, 30 goes for David. I take 10% for telling you the idea. The point is that when you do something like that, you're actually working in a team and you are ruling together. The reason why I'm telling you this is because of what happened in Rome. I'll try to keep this short because I wouldn't want to bore you to death. This refers to the first triumvirate. Triumvirate means three people working together or ruling together. And the first triumvirate, which happened in the year 60 or 53 BC, so that was 2,000 years ago, this was the first informal alliance among three really important figures in Rome. You must have heard about Julius Caesar. Everyone has heard his name. I think that people have that that notion of him, of wearing the wreath on his head. So Caesar, Pompey Magnus, and Crassus. These three people had very similar positions to the ones that I just explained for Marco, Adea, and David. When they lived in the Roman Republic, it was still not an empire, because you know what happened with the empire. When Rome became an empire, they conquered the world. They were very ambitious. They did a lot of harm to the world, although they've done a lot of good as well. So the Constitution of the Republic said that no one could be above the rest and create a monarchy. No one was allowed to be a king or an emperor or whatever. It was a republic. Everyone was the same. So Julius Caesar said, "Well, I'm not like the others. I'm extraordinary." Magnus said the same thing, and Crassus said the same thing. So they were like, "What can we do to bypass the law?" So they made the first informal alliance. Caesar was very connected to he was very well connected to other politicians, and people listened to him. He was a very influential figure. So everything he said, people would trust it. He was a trustworthy guy. Pompey was the greatest military leader of that time. So they had the army. They went on quests and stuff, and they were very successful. And Crassus was actually a very rich businessman, a very rich merchant at that time. So they had the money, they had the influence, and they had the army. So what they did is they ruled with Caesar from the shadows, like from behind the curtains for a very long time, and everything was going okay. What do you think the result was?
Of
Caesar
the
took
Roman Empire.
everything.
What would Marco, if Marco, Adele, and David came up with this idea of them working together, do you think it would last for long? Would it be successful in the long
Teacher,
run?
I don't think it would actually last because what if someone is not satisfied with like what they
No,
got?
because
They're not-
teacher, one person is gonna get too greedy for like
Yes.
power, and like
Yeah,
the whole thing.
and they'll want more.
That's
and
what
some will not
happened.
be satisfied with
Yeah.
what they
That's
have. They'll want
exactly
more
what
of
They
everything.
happened.
just want more and more.
That's exactly
That's
what
what
happened.
happened.
Because imagine if they're doing with this business with the pens. Marcos, at one point while he's having a shower, he'll get the idea like, why am I sharing the profit in equal thirds when I'm the one who invested in this business? So he'll say I should get 50%
No,
of the
teacher.
profit.
It may be like, for example, if I'm complaining, like I would say I'm doing the
The dirty
quote
work.
dirty work. Yes. Get paid more because the consequences for me are bigger.
That's right. Well, that's exactly what happened with the first triumvirate. Caesar was assassinated during combat in a battle, and after his death, people couldn't control the republic, so there was a civil war. There was a civil war. And what followed was the second triumvirate. The second triumvirate was an informal political alliance between Octavian, Mark Antony, and Lepidus. It was the same concept. The three of them brought different things to the table, and it ended with 2 suicides and a civil war. My point, what I want you to take from this lesson is that had they been family, I think that it might have worked. My point, if we analyze all these articles that I just covered, I think that the stronger the family bonds, the more likely the plan is to work. These people had nothing to lose in terms of family respect or honor or tradition. They were very greedy political figures who wanted to have everything, to own the whole thing. So I think that during the competition, if there is a motion regarding family ties and how they could affect the whole situation, I think that these 4 examples, 5 or 6 actually, I don't know how many we mentioned. I think that it could be enough for you to draw conclusions from. I hope this is clear. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Let me have a look. Right. I could talk about Cuba, but we won't have enough time. Now, this point over here, this is where I found the article for Hatshepsut and Tuthmosis III. But all these people, the Catholic monarchs of Spain, the Gonge Regency, the co-princes of Andorra, Alaric and Eric, these are Swedish kings. I don't know how to pronounce this bit, and this one is also very difficult because it's in French. All of these things involved people ruling together. Most of them were even shared the same blood, so they were cousins or brothers and sisters, and they would get married just to protect their right to the throne. So I don't think we'll have enough time to do all of it, but there are a lot of Wikipedia entries for this. So if you have the time, I think that they might be useful. The point with these lessons is that you don't have to learn these things just for the competition. I think that most people your age don't know these things. They might have heard about Trump or Michelle Obama, but they don't understand the basic the basic the basis of why that was so. Because we're talking about something that's called nepotism. It's a very common term in our politics as well, when people, not only in private companies, but state companies as well, public enterprises, they try to hire family members, and that puts others at a disadvantage. Because if my mother was the manager of a hospital, she's a nurse, but if she were the manager, she could do everything to hire me and give me secret information or guide me in the whole process, at other people's disadvantage. So these are common things that happen all around us. There's less than 1 minute. Can I please ask you to rejoin so we can wrap up the lesson?
Yeah, teacher.
Thank you.